After a week that was more shocking than a Scott Robinson tackle, the Rovers returned to Starks Park without Ian Murray yesterday. John Potter and Mickey Cameron took interim charge and will rightly take the plaudits after a single goal victory over Partick Thistle, with a depleted Rovers side digging out the victory. For a game between the bookies' favourites to win the division, it was somewhat lacking in quality, but the endeavour on show from the home side shows the platform that there is for whoever the new manager may be. This is the Oh No 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 podcast. I am Duncan Cameron, and to talk me through yesterday's game and indulge in some more wild speculation, I am delighted to have tonight Blair Hopcroft. First of all, how are you, Blair?
I'm very well, mate. Very well. Glad to be back to league business, talking about football for a change rather than managerial merry-go-rounds.
Employment law. We've got Robbie Weir as well. How are you, Robbie?
Yeah, delighted about the result yesterday. We gave them the old reverse Charlie Cowie treatment, which was fantastic to see. We don't do that to teams often enough for my liking, so happy days.
Definitely. We've got Callum Blythe as well. How are you, Callum?
I am fine, and in John Potter and Colin Cameron we trust.
Quite right. And finally, we've got Scott Fleming as well. How are you, Scott?
Yeah, really good. Cheers. It's been absolutely roasting over here today, and it's going to be next week. So just trying to keep cool, to be honest. It's been 30 degrees today.
Really feel for you.
Not, yeah. Normally that's Carol's chat. You don't really associate the Netherlands with the kind of scorching weather. But to be fair, it's not been bad here either today. It's picked up a bit. Right, listen, there'll be plenty of time for, we'll probably get some weather chat in as well, but there'll also be plenty of time to talk about the kind of managerial vacuum later on as well. But let's start with events on the park, as Blair says. Talk about that for a change after our 3.5 hours we've spent talking about Ian Murray and his sacking over the last week. So we'll start where we normally do with these games, which is 2:00. We get a lineup. And there was a fair bit of, I think, sort of trepidation going into this one. For a fairly kind of rare occurrence, we declined to try and name a starting 11 in the preview show because we just did not know who was going to be available for this.
You neglected my host duties as well.
Well, in the end up, it wasn't quite as bad as we, I think, had potentially feared. Ewan Murray and Callum Smith both kept their places despite sort of visibly struggling by the end of the Airdrie game. But still a fairly busy sort of player section up in the main stand with Scott Brown, Paul Hanlon, Lewis Vaughan, Jack Hamilton and Callum Fordyce all missing out entirely. Callum Fordyce in particular looks like he's taken a sore one. The old infamous moon boot was on show as he was making his way around the ground. So what that meant for the starting 11, Josh Mullen and Lewis Gibson came in for Aidan Connolly and Lewis Vaughan. And Blair, a bit of a sort of change in formation as well, which you were the first one to spot, so I'm going to credit you with that within our group anyway. More of a sort of a 4-1-4-1 than the 4-2-3-1 that we're accustomed to. Stanton kind of pushing further up and alongside Easton, sort of a 4 across the attacking midfield. What did you make of that change, and how much of an impact do you think it had on the early exchanges?
I was actually quite pleased with it. To be fair, it was. I think it would have been probably a bit more frustrating had they come out and just done exactly what they'd done the week before and gone with the same formation and not really changed. I know the personnel had to change a little bit, but if they'd just gone out with exactly the same tactics, you do get into that, well, why do we bother sacking the manager if we're just going to do exactly what he would have done anyway? So yeah, it was quite nice to see a bit of a change. Particularly impressed actually with Dylan Easton playing in that central role. I've said before on the show as well, I'm not a massive fan of Dylan Easton in the middle. I like him out wide. I think he's most effective when he's coming in, kind of chopping in off that left-hand side. So to see him playing in a slightly more narrow kind of position alongside Stanton, and the two of them really seem to be kind of interchanging quite well. One push, one stay, and kind of moving through. So, no, formation-wise, it was it was quite effective, actually. I think it was. I suppose it's making the best of what you've got, really. But yeah, not pleasing.
Yeah, and Robbie, how about you? How did you see the kind of change, and were you expecting more or sort of less of a difference, given that John Potter and Mickey Cameron are obviously, fairly significantly involved under Ian Murray?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting too much in terms of a change as such, simply because of the fact that we've got so many injuries just now. And I think it was clear that, Ross Matthews starting at right back and Liam Dick in the middle is not ideal by any stretch of the imagination, but still, they've both proven that they can do it there. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. But I think going forward, it was, as Blair says, it was a positive change to see. Great to see Callum Smith starting, given the sort of the worries that we had that we weren't going to have any forwards at all. And then a ridiculously strong shift from him over the piece. And then, of course, Lewis Gibson comes in as well. And I think that he was very impressive. So, yeah, really, really positive performance overall. But, yeah, in terms of the start, I think that that Partick are going to be strong. They're going to come out and go at you. And I think initially we probably struggled to get to grips maybe in the early stages. But then as the game went on, we definitely looked a lot more positive and got a lot more confident.
Yeah, that's more or less what I've got in my notes here, that Thistle started the game on top but didn't really have an awful lot to show for it. It was more just kind of they had the possession and they had a little bit of the territory, but they didn't really manage to create kind of much of note at all. With that in mind, Scott, up until, for the first kind of 20, 25 minutes, did you think it was going to be a bit of a repeat of what had gone the week before, with the Rovers kind of struggling to make many inroads?
Yeah, I think we were kind of all in agreement in the podcast group chat about that if we're going to be doing what we did in the first 20 minutes for another 70, this could be quite a long afternoon in terms of, as you say, Partick weren't creating chance after chance or anything, but they were just hemming us in. And we had 11 men behind the ball, and it was just a case of that we didn't even have the fact that an out ball to stick to get us out at all. So, yeah, I don't know if Potter got a message on to the players or if the players just naturally themselves just said, look, we need to change what we're doing here because we can't be doing this for 70 more minutes. Otherwise, Partick will eventually score. Because when you've got the players they've got up front as well, it's unlikely that if you can just sit back for 90 minutes and just allow them to keep coming attack after attack. But no, after the 20-minute mark, I thought actually we started to get the ball down and actually play out and just look a lot more similar to how we played last season at our best as well. I thought Sean Byrne was pretty essential in that, to be honest. I thought he had a really solid game yesterday. He was really sort of getting the ball down, having a look and playing at the game at his own pace is what he's good at as well. Kind of like what we said before he left, like somebody like a Spencer or a Regan Henge or whatever. These guys, they all play the game at their own pace. So when he's doing that, usually that keeps us ticking over. And I thought, yeah, he was like that yesterday. And then obviously when it led to the penalty, that kind of, I think the penalty also just injected a bit of extra life into us to say, look, no, we can do this. Well, we're at home. We've got a chance here to take the lead. Let's try and take it by the scruff of the neck, sort of thing as well.
Yeah, just on Sean Byrne for a second before we go back to the penalty. That shift in the formation asks a huge amount of Sean Byrne. When you're pushing Sam Stanton further forward and you've basically then got, it's the defence, 5 forwards, and then Sean Byrne has the entire job of linking the two and trying to disrupt everything. It's a huge ask. It's a really difficult thing to ask one player to do. And I thought he was excellent yesterday in terms of, like, I think it's almost as simple as if Sean Byrne has a bad game, that entire formation doesn't work. Like, the whole thing falls apart if the first one in your 4-1-4-1 isn't on form, both in a defensive sense and in terms of moving the ball forward. So I really thought he excelled at that.
See, for me, I think it's really that game was a perfect example of why you bring Sean Byrne in the summer. Like, firstly, you're denying a club like Partick Thistle the opportunity to get their hands on that player, and yeah, to have that in your team against that lineup to perform like that, yeah, absolutely brilliant. I thought he put in a brilliant shift, Sean Byrne.
I thought it was
Yeah,
quite telling
definitely.
though that it took us, like you said earlier on, it took us probably 20 minutes to get into the game. But I actually think it took Sean Byrne 20 minutes to get into the game. Like, it took him that time to start actually dictating a little bit more and kind of controlling the play a little bit more. Because the first 15, 20 minutes, I felt like he was struggling a little bit, and I wasn't sure whether we were going to get the performance that we ended up getting. But as soon as he got that kind of foothold in the game, like you say, it took over. I disagree a little bit though, Duncan, in terms of the formation and the sense of the role that he had, because actually I think there was always one of Stanton and Easton were always that little bit deeper, so you didn't have the same, when they used to play that 4-1-3-2 sort of at the beginning of last season
Yes.
under Murray, and there was always that massive, we talked a lot about that massive gap, particularly like Airdrie away actually last year, between your holding midfielder and your effectively your 10. It was such a big gap. And actually yesterday they plugged that massively by a lot of the time almost playing like a vertical 3 with Byrne and Easton and Stanton. There was always one pushing and one sitting kind of thing. I really liked the fluidity of it all.
I think it was also aided a fair bit by the makeup of Thistle's midfield as well. We spent quite a bit of time in the back end of last season sort of bemoaning the time that Kyle Turner spent in the base of midfield as opposed to playing further forward. Most famously the second game at Tannadice, where he just was overrun because we needed kind of someone who could tackle and do that job in there. And I think Thistle made the same mistake yesterday, in the sense that all three of Kyle Turner, Robbie Crawford and Scott Robinson, they're basically number 10s. So they set up the way that we normally do, the way that Murray did with the 4-2-3-1. But it's basically it's like playing a holding midfield of like Sam Stanton and Dylan Easton and like an Aidan Connolly or someone in there as well. Like they were missing their Scott Brown or their Sean Byrne, largely because those players play for us. But you know what I mean. They didn't have the tackler in there,
Yeah.
and I think that does make the job easier in the sense that all three of those guys want to be receiving a pass and going forward.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to be sitting back and knocking it about. But
There's
that's
an
not to
argument
take
to be
away
made
from.
That's probably Macbeth's role, is it not? Is he not the
just
one
thinking
option
that.
they've got that can do that, and he's playing centre half when they've got a centre
Yeah.
half on the bench? Bizarre.
I wonder
And
if
because,
maybe Dylan.
last season it was the boy Lewis Nielsen was
Yeah.
doing a lot of that as well, and I think he's the one that they've not replaced.
I wonder if Doolan maybe was thinking they would be so aggressive in their attacks that like they could have Macbeth quite far out of centre back to be able to like do that role in a sort of way. Like if they're getting up the pitch because they think, oh, we've got so many injuries and we can be quite maybe a bit more aggressive than usual.
Maybe.
I think I think there's definitely an element with that Thistle side is it's built to outgun more than anything else. Because I think, and forgive me if I'm forgetting someone, I'm not an expert on Thistle, but as I think about their squad, like the only real kind of defensive type midfielder they've got is Bannigan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's good for a booking, but he's not the player he was 5 years ago. They've not really replaced Ross Dockery, who went 2 seasons ago, in that sense. And as you say, they used Macbeth to do it, they used Nielsen to do it last season. And I think what he's basically done yesterday and the week before against Morton is what we've seen Rovers sides do it before as well, where it's just like, I'm just going to put out enough really good attacking players that the opposition will have to worry about us.
Mm-hmm.
But as I say, you lack the fluidity to do it. And what happens is you're losing the ball, you're getting turned over, and it's too easy for the opposition to get out. And I think that was the thing in the first half. As you like, Thistle started the better side, but they kept breaking down. They couldn't actually sort of create any clear-cut chances. Like, I don't think Brian Graham touched the ball inside the box in the first half. And when you look at the players around them and behind them, that's criminal. But that's what happens. It's when you're unbalanced. Again, we spoke about it loads last season when Scott Brown was playing in the midfield. Scott Brown was playing in the defence. That you miss him in the midfield. You need somebody who's less showy and less attacking, so that your attack works. That was quite football-y. We did a lot of kind of tacticky type chat there. Normally we're just talking about computer games and stuff. So to go back to the sort of the events of the game itself, the penalty was really the first actual sort of incident of note. Callum, there's kind of two incidents very quickly, kind of back to back in this. Mullen gets barged over by gargantuan brute Kyle Turner, and the referee lets that go, and then Lewis Gibson does very well to kind of draw the foul from Waziri Williams. Give me your thoughts just on that little kind of passage of play and the penalty itself.
I think it was one of the first times we'd actually really troubled their defence. And it was... I think it's like people were calling for a foul on the first incident, obviously, with Mullen. But then, obviously, referees who... things can be said about him, but he decided to play advantage, and Gibson managed to win a dubious penalty, as the Partick Thistle admin called it. But even then, it's like you watch the highlights back, and it's like, that's a penalty. I mean, it's like he's being kicked like between the legs as he's running. It's like, that's a penalty every day of the week. So
just to add in there, stellar work from the social media team just to hammer home that point on the Rafe Rovers side of like Rafe TV. It's like, just in case you were thinking it was ever so slightly dubious, and then you just see Waziri Williams absolutely blooter him. Like, there's no doubt about it.
I think at the very least, someone needs to give Waziri Williams like just a small lesson in like the kidology of football, because he could not look more crestfallen by the fact that he's clearly kicked Lewis Gibson over. Like, he doesn't complain at all. He starts berating one of his other defenders for letting the ball come across. It's like the body language alone that's going to make the referee's decision for him. But it was, to be fair.
I was going to say, it wasn't so much letting the ball come across, it was cannoning the ball off your own teammate to allow it to come back across. I mean, it was like a comedy of errors.
Yeah, and I will kind of put my hands up and say, at the time, I thought it looked soft. You know, from the other end of the ground, I thought he'd maybe gone down a little bit easy on it, but seeing it on the replay, it's definitely a penalty. It's categorical.
Yeah, I was always certain that he's massacred Lewis Gibson. There was no doubt in my head that it was anything other than a stonewall.
I thought the first one was a penalty as well, for what it's worth. The run across Mullen was absolutely deliberate. He blocked him off. For me, was enough for a penalty, or at least enough for a shout of a penalty. Do you know what I mean? You're never going to get it, probably, but
see, for the actual penalty,
I'm not sold on that. I think it's too much of Turner's sort of his back as he's turning, and I know that he's still kind of blocking off the run, but I think it would be different if he had his arm out or something like that. I would have been annoyed if we had the first one given against us, but the second one's a stonewall, and you see it all the time. The defenders just decide he's going to have a big swing, and he's not enough awareness that Gibson's coming across him, and
Gibson does really well to anticipate it as well. Like, he's in the right area that you want your sort of attacking players to be in. So, aye.
So, like, in the Rovers highlights now, there's like a very brief sort of Dragon Ball Z style sort of spinning graphic that appears at the point of contact, which
Callum, just for our older listeners, can you please update them as to what Dragon Ball Z is?
I wish I could tell you. I never watched it.
Dear me, it's just it's a very. I really like it, but it's like, in case you're not entirely sure where the which incident we're watching right now, it's the only two boys in shot where the ball is.
course, it wasn't.
no,
It
it's a
wasn't
definite
Ian
penalty.
Grieve. I was going to say it wasn't Ian Grieve that put the package together because he was out. I saw a tweet from him saying that I think he was out at the festival or out on a night out or something like that. So, yeah, maybe it's not something to stay on.
Whoever the understudy is flexing their creative juices.
It's got the night off. I can do what I want.
Aye, I'm going to chuck in a couple of little graphics here. But no, I liked it. It was good. A good few angles on the penalty as well. I mean, not much to say about the penalty itself. It's well taken. He sends the goalkeeper the wrong way and he puts it the other side. The only thing in this, I mean, it's irrelevant because he scored it. The keeper's well off his line. I would be genuinely interested if the referee was watching for it, because it's quite obvious, and I felt like the referee was quite picky. And I would have been I'm actually interested. I wish I had some sort of contact with the referee today. Just say, go on, just tell me, would you have pulled that back? Because he definitely should have done had it been saved. Anything to say on actually the penalty itself? Robbie, were you surprised to see that it was Easton taking it? Anything like that? Possibly Callum Smith as the striker?
Nah, I mean, Callum Smith, he's given up penalties before, and I know that he had one in the last derby that we had against Dunfermline. Derbies in Dunfermline, it's just not going well for them, is it? I suppose it's a rivalry. But he's given them up before, so it's Easton. It's a solid pick for a penalty, isn't it? It does well, so yeah.
Aye, exactly. And he makes no mistake. From that point on, we kind of touched upon it already, but really I thought the pattern of the rest of the first half, the Rovers were much more... They had a little bit more of their swagger back. Still not, I think, anywhere near to the degree that the board are clearly hoping for with the decisions that they've made recently. But there was just a little bit more of... couple of wee chances, couple of wee digs. Lewis Gibson in particular had one, a goal from distance that went just a wee bit over the bar, and then there's a cross that Josh Mullen kind of flashes right across the goal. And I mean, on the one hand, I don't think anyone's ever near close enough to actually get it. So in that sense, is that a good cross? I don't know, but I mean, it's the right idea. It's got the pace that's on it. You're hoping that somebody can just get on the end of that. And
you
that,
do wonder if that's something that they're working on, though, because that was identical to the goal against Stranraer that Jack Hamilton was on the end of. So, aye.
That's it, and it's just... I think that little kind of period was probably the most kind of fluid almost that it got for the Rovers over the afternoon. And you can see... There was a little chance as well
Sorry, I was going to say with Stanton crossing to Smith, who ends up heading it basically into the keeper's hands. Is that kind of towards the tail end of that passage, isn't it? And
that's, I think he's trying to go back across the keeper, and actually because he can't quite get the power on it.
If he just glanced it kind of to the keeper's left, his right, he might have actually. I mean, he's so close.
That's it, and there's a couple of kind of half chances for Thistle across that period as well, kind of between the penalty and half time. There's one where Kevin Dabrowski tips it over the bar. It's a kind of half volley from Brian Graham from the edge of the box. A real I make this shit look good save, I think we could probably classify that as, but he's doing the job that's asked of him. And then the one that actually I was much more impressed by, much more pleased to see, Kyle Turner kind of whips a free kick in, and it's kind of it's over the goalkeeper's head, it's to the back post, it's a busy area, and there's not a shadow of a doubt in his mind. He's not thinking about waiting, he's not thinking about punching, he's straight to it, he catches it, he drops it a little bit on the way down, but he catches it again. I thought it was just really, really confident goalkeeping, and the kind of deliberate, like single-mindedness that we probably wouldn't have seen from Kevin Dabrowski kind of 12 months ago. Scott, I think there's probably a fair bit to talk about Kevin Dabrowski across this one. He got the Sponsors man of the match, he'll be in, I'm sure, in the conversation for hours in a couple of minutes. What were your main kind of thoughts on the performance of the goalkeeper yesterday?
Yeah, I would be in full agreement with the whole. I think Kev just seems a lot more comfortable in his position this year. I think we all knew that. Listen, the guy was a talented goalkeeper, and we were all glad when we signed him last year, because I know that basically the rest of the championship were interested in him as well. So the fact we got him on a couple of year deal as well, I think everybody was like, right, this is his chance to now prove that he wants to be a starting keeper at this level for now, maybe to progress into the Premiership at some point. And I think we got to see some howlers last year. I mean, let's not get that wrong, but I think we also got to see some absolute save of the season contenders constantly as well. So you got a bit of everything with him last year. His kicking seems to have improved massively over the summer as well. I mean, there was a few times in the last sort of couple of games where somebody's fired the ball back at him, and he's either taken a touch or he's just actually been better at his first time sort of clearances. So his full round game, he just seems to be more confident this year. I mean, off the park, he seems like a confident enough guy anyway, but I don't know, the fact that you highlighted that.
Can I just say, no wonder, man. No wonder.
You highlighted the chance there, the ball getting whipped into the back post, and as soon as he caught that, I went, that's new. Like, in terms of last season, he would have just kind of slapped at it for a corner, and he would have got someone on it, but it wouldn't have been convincing. Whereas this year, yeah, I think he seems to be... Robbie, I think's worked hard with him to try and really drill down that he needs to try and take some pressure off the defence at times, because last year I think they were kind of panicking a wee bit while I'm going, right, we need to make sure that we're alert in case he punches it straight to one of their players or something like that. But no, I thought yesterday was, especially in the conditions as well, I thought he was really confident yesterday.
Definitely. It could have been a very difficult day for a goalkeeper, but he handled it very well.
I'm just going to put a question out there into the chat. So to paraphrase of the youth of today, is Kevin Dubrovsky probably the most vibes player in the league?
I don't know what that means.
You would really have to say, like, he's up there.
Callum.
Like, he's just got an aura about there.
So, spokesman for the youth, Callum, live.
Just falls silent. Yeah, 100% does though. He's just the guy's just got this aura about him where you just have complete he seems so relaxed about what he's doing, and he's just, as Scott says, he's just getting more and more confident with every passing game and doing so well. I think it is the point now where it's like the
improvement in him in the last 12 months is mental. Like, as Scott says, he was a good goalkeeper coming in, but you'd be forgiven for forgetting that last season was his first season as a number one. He'd never done it before. He'd been on loan, he'd been in and around teams, he'd played games, but he was first choice goalkeeper at a championship club that finished second in the league last year. That's massive for a goalkeeper at that age. He's kicking. I'll fully go on board with 2 feet. He is a 2-footed goalkeeper. His kicking is so much better than what it was this time last year, like night and day. And the big thing for me is he now looks like he really enjoys the physicality. There was a couple of times yesterday where players, and Rico Diac did it towards the very end, but there was a couple of times where players came in and tried to body him. He loves it now. You can see it in him. Like, he's inviting. But he's almost doing that thing of, I'm going to pick it up, but I'm not going to pick it up until you're close enough. And then he, picks up the ball and then takes that challenge. He loves it. He was brilliant yesterday. Really, really good. And that, I mean, we skipped over it quite quickly, but that chance for Brian Graham, like, it came from nothing. It was a lofty, crappy ball. It hit somebody's head and it just dropped. And Brian Graham did what Brian Graham does, and he on the half turn and just leathers it. And I think a lot of goalkeepers may not have even seen it, let alone got a good touch on it, and made it, like as Duncan said, made it look like a Sky Sports highlight reel as he tips it over the bar. Yeah, very, very impressive.
Just need a new contract for him now.
We do.
I just want to see on Kev's physicality thing. Like I swear there was a point in the first half of the match where he caught the ball and then made like a beeline to Brian Graham to like bully him.
Yeah.
I think Scott Robinson, more on him later, had already kind of had a wee go at him, had just had a wee extra run in. I know you said Diak did it in the second half, but Brian Graham didn't get the chance. Brian Graham might have been thinking about doing it. And Kev kind of caught the ball and had to take 2 steps to the left to just kind of give him a wee dunt.
Probably too busy grieving the referee. That's all he seemed to do yesterday, Brian Graham.
Jeez, doesn't he have?
Wait, that's everything.
That's
There's not enough podcasts.
That's enough about Kevin Dabrowski's Riz. Let's
the vibes
step into one or two other.
Vibes player of the championship, man. It's just someone else.
If anybody knows what that
34,
means,
man.
How are you guys making me feel old? I have no idea what half these things mean.
Yeah, very, very much not on TikTok, because we would know what these things mean. Yeah, sorry, I'm going to talk about Brian Graham for a minute.
Wanker.
Just shut up, man. So I was kind of wondering this in the first half. So they had this thing at the Euros where it's only supposed to be the captain who's allowed to talk to the referee. It's still unclear to me whether or not they're kind of trying to use that directive in the Championship or in the SPFL this year. I checked with refereeing Oracle, Craig Anderson of the Terrace, but he didn't know either. But I was wondering that in the first half because Brian Graham seemed to be so vocal, even more so than normal. And I wondered that has he been kind of empowered by this directive? If it says only the captain can talk to the referee, is he just taking that and running with it? You can't book me for chatting to you constantly because I'm the only one who's allowed to. So if I don't do it, who else will?
I'm whinging. I'm one whinging player, so there's 10 other players that I can equally whinge for. So there you go.
See that point in the first half?
Because I wondered the other thing as well was... sorry, mate, you go.
No, I was going to say the one where the ball goes out for a goal kick and it's quite clearly meant to be a corner. And we always say, these things even up because literally the same thing happened in the second half. But Kyle Turner's doing his thing. He is going mental. And he's going and he's going and they go back for the goal kick. And he's still going and he's still going and the referee pulls him over. And he pulls over Brian Graham as well as the captain, as you say, to literally do that, sort him out, or I'm going to book him. Brian Graham just joins in. He just starts going at the referee about exactly the same thing. I'm like, you've just asked him to come over to calm it down, and he joins in. Book the pair of them and get on with the game.
I just Brian Graham should just start with a yellow card for that, just to try and keep him under wraps. Because I was wondering as well when Josh Mullen was booked.
Yeah.
In the first half, because it was Ross Matthews who had quite clearly been fouled and was complaining about it in the build-up. And it seemed like Josh Mullen had only been on the scene for about 2 seconds and the card was at the referee's pocket. So I wonder if it was that, where it's like, your captain's already here, I'm already talking to him, why are you getting involved? But actually, I suspect it's probably not. I think he probably just used some bad words he wasn't supposed to use and kind of crossed the line there. But the main evidence I have for that is that I don't think Kyle Turner was booked at any point. And surely under that rule, Kyle Turner gets booked at some point.
But Brian Graham...
The stuff that I liked it when he was doing it for us.
Yeah, you've got to love Graham's consistency because he moans and he moans and he moans at the referee about everything. But he also moans at his teammates. He appears to absolutely hate... I forget his name now. The left winger. The wee guy with the dark hair. That's really bad. Fitzpatrick, thank you. I've had Lawless in my head and I'm like, it's definitely not Lawless. Fitzpatrick and him clearly hate each other. They do. They hate each other because every time a cross comes in, Brian Graham points to where he wanted it. Lawless, I'm doing it already. Fitzpatrick points at where he was going to put it, and it's like the two of them just go at each other. He must be a nightmare to play with, an absolute nightmare.
Did the Partick fans
John Baird not say that about him?
Fitzpatrick's back as well.
To put in perspective how bad he is, I know someone that knows sister she now plays for St Johnstone's Women. She used to play for Boroughmuir Thistle. And she said that when Boroughmuir were playing Partick, Brian Graham was an absolute pain in the arse because all he did was moan. Like, just for an SWPL2 game, like, he was just whinging away, like, just relentless with it. But aye.
I'm sure John Baird said that in an interview at one point. He was like, off the park, best friends. On the park, he just will not shut up. Just constantly berating his teammates. And listen, it works for him most of the time. Didn't yesterday, but most of the time it does.
Good.
Just quickly we're going all round the houses here. Only got to half time, but on Fitzpatrick, Robbie, do you think in Logan Chalmers and Aidan Fitzpatrick, Thistle have got two wingers that verge on the kind of cusp of luxury players, and you think two's too many to carry?
With Fitzpatrick, I'd say probably less so, because I think he's got at least a solid, reasonable track record in terms of consistency, I feel. I've got no stats to back that up whatsoever, so someone will probably listen to this podcast and be like, you're talking absolute nonsense. But yeah, Fitzpatrick, albeit what I did notice was that a lot of Thistle fans on Twitter were slaughtering him yesterday after the game, just saying that he's, the usual type of stuff, commenting about footballers' lifestyles away from the games, spotted out in town too many times and stuff like that, which, again, you can't really comment on when you don't know the ins and outs. But, I mean, Fitzpatrick he was very ineffective yesterday in a match-up against Ross Matthews. And Ross Matthews, I felt, had a good game. Given that he's out of position, I feel like Matthews did everything asked of him. To switch it to the other wing, Logan Chalmers, oh my goodness. I feel like we built up Logan Chalmers something fierce during the summer, saying, is he coming in? Is he coming in? Is he coming in? And every time we've seen him play at Starks before, it feels like he's scored a worldie, or he's just been an exceptionally talented player, come on, pinging goals left, right and centre. We've been slaughtered for signing Lewis Stevenson. People saying, Dad's Army, why are you bringing in players like Lewis Stevenson, 2-year deal? Lewis Stevenson just had complete control of him from minute one. There was not any doubt. And Chalmers just really, really struggled, particularly with Williams behind him, because he didn't have anyone to sort of double up with. So to have, you've obviously got sort of Gibson coming in there, Stevenson, Easton dropping out as well to help out at points. That combination really caused an issue for Partick going down that right. And Chalmers just has not hit the ground running with Thistle, and it's great to see, given the build-up that he had to signing. Because I think a lot of their fans, sort of Turner was like the marquee signing, but after that you're looking at Chalmers being the one that was getting them really excited, and he's just not delivering, which is brilliant.
So we were coming away from the game. My dad was saying about Fitzpatrick, and he's saying, you get some wingers in particular, you can tell with their first touch whether they're going to have a good day or not. And I think Fitzpatrick's in that category, where if he starts off really well, he'll just take that and run with it. And on his day, he's such a good winger for this level. Chalmers, I actually think, is different. Chalmers, I think, just offers you nothing apart from when he's pinging the ball into the goal. Like, you're not going to get like minor contributions from him. You basically just have to carry him doing bugger all for the time that when you do give him the ball and he beats two men and rifles it in the top corner. And it's just a case of trying to like manage him enough that he's only on the park for doing those bits. And that was where I think yesterday Fitzpatrick wasn't on it. Chalmers never had any of those moments. And then, as we talked about before, the middle of Thistle's team was kind of really unbalanced. I think that's where they just never looked coherent at any point. And then just a kind of final point before we'll go through the second half relatively quickly, I think, because we've squeezed a fair bit out of this. I just want a word for Lewis Gibson, because I think the first half in particular, I thought he was really good. We talked a little bit about people kind of calling for him to start and all that kind of stuff. Ian in particular, I remember, was talking about having to kind of temper the expectations with Lewis Gibson, but that was his first start, and I mean, he completely justified it as far as I'm concerned. But Callum, just give me a word on Lewis Gibson, and I make it a nice word because I have it on good authority that his mum's been listening.
Gibson's been excellent since coming in. He's the sort of player he's like Easton, where he wants to run at defenders, and that's a useful thing to have, especially off the bench. But him starting games at this level, which is something he's not done before, that's what he was saying when he came in. He'd only played at League One level with Queen and herself. So for him to come into the team that's looking to finish at the top end of the championship and to slot right in and be up and at it is really, really promising for us. And for him especially, like, I think he got quite, like you said, he did have that shot that went just over. But it's like, he's not afraid. He has no fear in him. And I really like that in a young winger.
Yeah, I don't think I mentioned it. He had a little chance in the first half as well. Before the penalty, is pretty much, I think, the only highlight in the package before the penalty, where it's a second ball from a corner. And it's quite cute. It just as the ball drops to his feet, he's just on the spin. He just kind of tucks it away. And it goes maybe just a foot or two wide. But you very easily see that kind of rocking at the bottom corner. It's very nice little bit of technique, given he's got his back to goal. Where you've already said there, you're very impressed. Just, again, a little bit from you on Lewis Gibson, please.
Yeah, just I'd echo everything that Callum said. He's really hit the ground running way quicker than I assumed he would. I spoke about it a few weeks ago, but I did think he was a one for the future kind of signing. I don't think he is at all. I think he's probably at an age where we can use him when we need him. I don't think he's going to come in and command to play every week. I don't think he's going to be upset if he's starting on the bench. He probably will be, but you know what I mean? I don't think he's going to be kicking up a stink and asking his agent to get him a move because he's not getting a start every week. So I think he's a really exciting prospect, actually. I really like, as Callum says, that fearless thing about him. He just wants to drive with the ball. But I was impressed yesterday at the ball retention as well, because with a player like that, you can end up quite quickly just having lots of turnovers. So, you're just trying to beat a man and trying to beat a man and trying to beat a man, and when it's not coming off for you. But he's quite happy rolling the ball inside to Easton. He's quite happy picking the ball up, playing it back to Stevenson and getting it back from him, and that kind of rotational kind of thing as well. Like he definitely did not play like, what is it, 18, 19?
Aye, 18.
18. He did not play like an 18-year-old yesterday.
18, and for me,
I think he's just turned 19.
Just turned 19.
Well,
again, though, but
18,
not playing like that.
Bearing in mind,
he'll know what a vibesman is. He'll know what that is.
I hope he does. But bearing in mind, right, you've got Josh Mullen, Aidan Connolly, Fitzpatrick, and Chalmers all on the pitch. So 4 of the most seasoned wingers, and there's a really strong argument there to say that Gibson was the best one on the pitch yesterday. I know that Mullen had a really good game as well, yes. Josh. But yeah, for me, I think that, and that's the thing. I know that it was spoken about before. I can't remember if it was Ian Murray or John Potter, but I know Ian Murray's last few interviews, he made a lot about look, you're a player, go out and don't be afraid to make mistakes, because that's the one thing that we will allow. If you make a mistake, you lose the ball. That's absolutely fine. Because there's the chance that the next time that you get past someone and that people are on their feet, not off their feet, like certain Dunfermline media outlets are saying. But it's one of those things where, especially at that age, people are going to be very, very forgiving if you lose the ball. So just go out and just do what you're doing, and that's the main thing. I thought it was a really, really assured display. I was
going to say Fitzpatrick's probably quite a good kind of analogy. Actually, he's a similar kind of player to Fitzpatrick. Actually, and I said a couple of weeks ago, he's very different to everybody else we have that plays as a winger, but he is probably more of a Fitzpatrick than any of the others that were on yesterday. He was good.
He's more direct, I think, than the others, and a bit more. sort of powerful almost.
Mhm.
Like just that kind of direct running that, you wouldn't be surprised if he knocked somebody over.
Yeah.
As opposed
I
to
think
having
that's
to
what I
try
mean
and
with
drink around them.
that not playing like he's 18, 19. I mean, he was up against, what's his name? Waziri Williams or something, the boy that was playing
Waziri
right
Williams,
back for them.
yeah.
Ziggy Williams,
I mean, he's a
He looked like
a
David
unit.
Mackay, by the way.
He's an absolute
Big
unit,
laddie.
though. Like, and Gibson went toe to toe with him a couple of times. Like, is not afraid to wire in and not afraid to get involved. And because, like, I'm a big fan of Josh Mullen, and I am. But the one criticism that I can lay at Josh Mullen's door is he's not the most, physical. He doesn't always enjoy a tackle or enjoy a header. We talked about it when he played right back a couple of times last season, that he's not the most comfortable with that side of the game. And you saw that yesterday, actually. I know we'll get to the second half. But Gibson, very different animal. Like, he's just willing to, even the penalty, willing to put himself in a position where he knows he's going to get lamped. And he's literally put himself in to get volleyed and has taken it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really, really impressed with them yesterday. Right, listen, it's taken us 46 minutes to talk about the first 45 minutes yesterday. So let's speed through this. Speed through the second half a little bit. So, I mean, in terms of the second half, I think it was not what you would call a kind of feast of football. So there was one big incident, was the red card. So I tell you what, let's come back to that, because that's going to be the main talking point. Other than that, there was some more good goalkeeping from Kevin Dabrowski. He makes a couple of quite similar saves, one from Fitzpatrick and one from Rico Diak, both with a kind of coming down the right wing and shooting from the narrow angle. He also saves one down low from Harry Milne, who, by the way, has regressed terribly over the last couple of years. Harry Milne 2 summers ago could have had his pick of like clubs in the bottom 6 if he was willing to leave Firhill, and I don't know, he just seems to have gone backwards. I thought he was terrible yesterday.
He's a player who always surprises me that he's old as he is. I feel like he's permanently like 23, 22, Harry Milne, but he's what, 27, 28 or something now. That really surprised me when I found out that.
Should still be where like he's kind of improving for the position that he is. Like that should be his peak age, but he's nowhere near where he was a couple of years ago.
He's no Lewis Stevenson, let's put it that way.
I mean, we look at like Mason Hancock at Airdrie as well. Like even like less than a year ago when we started this podcast, I would have said Harry Milne's the best left back in the league, and now I'm not convinced he gets into the top 3 on the evidence the last couple of times that I've seen him.
But remember when they announced the signing the other week. They signed a left back with brilliant pedigree with Tottenham under 21 games.
Yeah, Charlie Sayers, something like that.
I forgot about Ian.
It seemed like an odd that they still didn't have a right back at that point, but they signed a second left back when Harry Milne, as much as I'm slating him there, he's still fine. Like it seemed odd that they went and signed like a kind of a first team type player to come in that position as well. In terms of Rovers going forward, Josh Mullen hit the bar minutes after he'd kind of given the ball away and then had to go on like an 80-yard chase to try and get it back.
And refused to wipe the boy out.
There was a bit of chat about because he was on a booking.
Because he was already on a booking.
I'm not caring.
Which I think to be fair, everyone had forgotten about.
To be fair,
from the first half, he definitely was. Was on a booking.
Cacophony of
shouldn't
get him off, and then all of a sudden he goes up the pitch and everyone's like, "Oh, aye, that's why we don't get him off."
Aye, definitely. I would have been so pleased to see that going, obviously, but just for Josh Mullen, I would have been delighted if that had just clipped the underside of the bar and gone in. But actually, other than that, that's pretty much the kind of the points from the second half.
See,
other than
before we go on to the booking, just a mention for Kai Montague, my favourite unit, who came on, and I thought
his unit impression.
I thought he was excellent. He came on and he ran about and he made himself an absolute nuisance. It was great fun to watch. Just the type of player that you want in that situation where he just.
Who did it remind you of?
What's the kid? Enlighten me.
Johnny Court. It was the most Johnny Court 20 minutes I have ever seen in a Wraith Rover shirt. It's exactly what Johnny Court used to do.
Christina will be cheering at her.
And off he pops.
Christina will be popping off at that one. She'll be delighted at the mention of Johnny Court.
But that was exactly what we needed at that point. Because, I mean, we talked about it beforehand, like, what do you do going forward?
Yeah.
You know, you're going to start to run out of players pretty quickly. And I send on Kai Montague just to kind of rattle into folk and see what he can break loose. And he got himself a yellow card. Fair play.
Absolutely bluttered the goalie.
That's it. You love to see it.
It's no big Kevin.
Yeah. So we'll tell you, we better talk about this red card. Just an absolute horror. Like, at the time it looked bad enough. There was no doubt in my mind that's a red card. Like, he's gone over the ball as much as anything. But seeing it back from the railway stand camera, I mean, you got the perfect angle on it. It really is just shocking. Like, and I know there's a bit of kind of chat about. So Aidan Connolly probably fouls him. I think it's probably a foul where he's kind of trying to get in from behind, and he maybe gets a toe on the ball, maybe he doesn't.
I don't think it's a foul myself.
It's a foul.
There's no mitigation in that at all.
Nah.
Well, it doesn't matter. Like, fundamentally, it doesn't matter because he's still in possession of the ball, and he decides to go over the top of it. It's a shocker. Scott, you obviously had the benefit of seeing that angle. Kind of live, so give me your thoughts on Scott Robinson and that. I mean, I think I've called it a tackle a couple of times. I don't think it is a tackle. I think he's got the ball, so I don't know what you would call it. But give me your thoughts on it, regardless.
Yeah, it was a shocker, really. The thing was I'm not sure if I would say that we're talking about whether Connolly is a foul or not. I don't think Connolly actually really got enough contact on him to say it's a foul. Like, he still kind of had the ball, as you say, but then, weirdly, obviously, it's kind of got stuck in between his feet and he's had to go back to try and get it again. And then he's just went... It's almost like he's went, oh, fuck it, and just, like, gone over the top deliberately, and he's basically just stamped right onto Connolly's shin. But then as soon as I almost went, has he actually just done that? Or is, like, my thing sort of, like, glitched where he's, like, actually won the ball and then, like, it's the follow-through that I've seen? I was like, no, as soon as the referee's not even 2 yards away. And I was just like, you can't even disguise this. And then you can see Tyle Turner running over just going, yeah, this is not looking good. Running round with a reaction's
really good.
He's running around.
Knows he should be running in.
Ian Lattle put on Twitter of running around with a card signal. He's going, send him off. Forgetting he's not playing for the Rovers.
Just runs in because he knows he should, but doesn't have a case, doesn't have like a point to make. He's just got his arm in the air. But it's just because like Robinson goes beyond, and he actually makes a really deliberate sort of cuts the ball back away from Sean Byrne, and then the most charitable interpretation you can give is that he's trying to just get his foot between Connolly and the ball to then put his body in the way afterwards. But it's not like Connolly's coming in from his blind side or anything like that. He knows he's there, and he's just annoyed. He's too angry. He's seen red, and he's just. I think it's one of these ones. He's lucky if the SFA don't take a second look at that, because it's just horrible. And I think probably scuppered Thistle's chances of getting back into the game. As you said, a couple of kind of half chances, but really, I mean, from that point on, Callum, were you concerned at any point, or were you quite confident that the Rovers would see that out?
I did jokingly say to my brother, this is where we concede the silliest goal of the season, probably, but I was quite confident in holding that out. I just want to go back to the red card and say the person I was angriest at the most was the referee, because at that point I just shouted out, it's taking you 75 minutes to do your fucking job. It's like how try and think, it was only like one booking they had beforehand, wasn't it?
Yeah, Chalmers had one that I felt should have been at least
they should have had like 4 or 5 bookings beforehand. It's like the ref had lost control of the game like during the first half. And it's like you could tell, and it's like throughout that second half, you just sort of like maybe like the 5-minute period beforehand, you could just sort of sense that this is bubbling over. There is going to be a red card. It's like
I actually thought just on that point, Callum, I actually thought when Ross Matthews got booked, I thought he was getting sent off. I thought he kind of,
I couldn't believe
he came kind of straight on to win the ball, and I think he did win the ball, but I think it's one of those tackles you're just not allowed to do anymore, like kind of coming straight through, and the ref reached for his back pocket, because I turned to my mate and I was like, oh my God, he's off. Reached for his back pocket, but then pulled out a yellow. So yeah, I think that was the kind of beginning. That was about 10 minutes before the red card, and I think that was the beginning of it starting to get a bit tetchy.
It was like a minute beforehand, Ross Matthews had been sent into the dugouts by a Thistle player and nothing was called. It's just like, completely. What is going on?
I would go as far as to say that
I don't blame Robinson.
That red card.
I don't blame Robinson for going in for it.
No, but
like you get away with it because nothing.
Well, that's it. It had been poorly managed. But that red card for me won us the game. So when you asked Duncan about, were you worried at any point? From about 70 minutes, I was really worried because we had basically no attacking options left, and they were starting to push, and they were starting to push, and they were starting to push. And the wind was starting to pick up a little bit, and it was getting a little bit more blustery and a little bit more unpredictable and stuff. And I did think we're not going to see this out to 90 minutes here. But we're going to be really lucky to see this through. And then that red card killed them completely.
It definitely did. I think from that point on, for whatever reason, I was fairly confident that we would see that through. And I mean, in that sense, Robbie, given how often we won games by a single goal last season, despite the fact that Ian Murray's obviously now gone, do you think, in reflection, that it was quite an Ian Murray type performance, or quite an Ian Murray type victory from the Rovers?
Yeah, I would say to some degree. I feel like it was just very solid sort of game management, particularly towards the end. Like I think that we were getting the ball out really well at the end of the game to be able to get up the pitch, and there was a few breaks where you were thinking if there was maybe just an extra sort of decision made as to where the ball was going, whether it's left or right, then it might have been a bit further forward. But yeah, overall, like, I think Blair sums it up perfectly, that red card finished off that game and killed any momentum that Thistle had. And Thistle's track record at Starks Park is absolutely abysmal. I should say that as well. For as much as everyone goes on about our record against Airdrie over the last season, Thistle have only won at Starks once over the last 10 years. And even then, that was the playoff games where we beat them on penalties, so nobody cared. Like, it feels like every time they come to Starks Park, they completely shit the bed, which is great. I think that it was just really exactly what everyone needed. I know that the phrase beforehand from Andrew Barrowman was very much like, relight the fire. And John Potter touched on that in his post-match interview with Davey. He sort of said, like, I don't know what it is, but a lot of the people before the game were everyone was sort of saying, oh, we'd take a draw. And he's saying, why are we settling for that? Why are we accepting that? We need to drive that forward. So yeah, I think that given the circumstances, absolutely phenomenal win. Like, just, if we lose that game, Ayr are sitting on 6 points, Partick are on 4 points, and you're sitting thinking automatically like, oh, this is a really rough start to the season with Ayr coming up. Now we've got a chance to go to Ayr after a short break. Potter was saying potentially 3 players coming back from injury for that game. Like, give them a proper stern test as to see what their credentials are like. So yeah, very, very enthusiastic going forward, and every reason for optimism, because I feel like it was needed after the last week, like just how the discourse has gone.
All right, well, let's just have a quick whip round for kind of man of the match and any other kind of closing thoughts on this one. I think we've mentioned a lot of the kind of impressive performers, but over the piece, Blair, man of the match for you?
Big Kevy. I mean, he got it from the support, the sponsors, and it was It was really justified, actually. Kept us in it at times. Special mention for me, Dylan Easton. I was really impressed. A different role for him, but yeah, really impressed with his performance as well.
All right, Callum, for you.
I think I said in the group chat about 60 minutes, 65 minutes in, I just went, Kev's getting man of the match, and I won't complain because he was excellent. Once again, really, really good. It's all the confidence in the world in him right now. So, but of course, special mentions to Gibson, Sean Byrne. Byrne had a really good game. So did Dick and Murray. Dick and Murray had really good games as well, I thought.
Yeah, not mentioned either of them
no one had
so
a bad
far.
game.
But
I think everyone had a pretty good game, actually. So
it's interesting that because I don't think, now bearing in mind there's a lot of injuries, which has a big factor in it, but I don't think you could necessarily say that it was a really good performance as a team necessarily. Like, I don't think the Rovers were never fluid, they were never really flying at any point. But yeah, individually, I think everybody did very, very well. Scott, for you, man of the match and notable mentions, and any other closing thoughts?
I think, to be honest, I couldn't have really disagreed with Kev. I think I mentioned obviously Byrne earlier in the episode that I thought that he was kind of getting back to his best again, and a special mention actually to Callum Smith, because that's quite a tough role that we asked him to do yesterday, and I thought he was pretty selfless and just running and just kind of giving the Partick defenders just enough to worry about constantly than just like a centre forward that just sort of, like a Zach Rudden that just walks around and waits for something to happen. He's at least trying to harass them a wee bit. So, no, I thought for 90 minutes, he knew he was going to have to play 90 as well because there was no striker per se on the bench. So, had he got injured, obviously it would have been really interesting to see what we would have done then. But no, I thought he also put in a hell of an effort as well.
Yeah, he was the one I was waiting for someone to mention. Callum Smith, I thought he was excellent. Actually doing a lot of the stuff that we normally sort of turn to Jack Hamilton to do. There was a few bits where he was coming back with his back to goal, kind of chesting the ball down to a teammate, and just, didn't give them a moment's peace. I know Ian had a bee in his bonnet about the boy Luke Macbeth just looking like a big turnip at the back, and I think a lot of that was
but he came
down
from
to Callum
juniors,
Smith,
though.
just giving him the runaround. He'll be back there soon if he plays like that. And to be fair, I've seen him a few times to telly, and he's looked decent. Didn't look that way.
I was going to say, I actually think he's all right, but he was rotten yesterday.
I think he's better in the midfield from the evidence of when I've seen him. But the thing I wanted to mention, both Josh Mullen and Callum Smith, because I was really impressed with them both, particularly in terms of the effort that they put in. There can't be many times, if any, that those two have played 90 minutes for the Rovers.
No.
When you think about the other options that we've got for their position, I'm thinking Josh Mullen in particular.
Yep.
Like, every game he plays, Josh Mullen knows he's doing an hour. He's maybe doing 70 minutes, and then there's an Aidan Connolly or a Lewis Gibson or a Dylan Easton or a Samsley. There's somebody's going to come on for him. And from like a conditioning point of view, that must just be really tricky to actually then sort of bang out an extra 20 minutes on top of that. And, hit the bar in that period at the end, when he must have been absolutely puggled. And Callum Smith's the same. So I was really impressed with both of them, just on that front. And Robbie, man of the match for you, please.
I think everyone's really covered all the usual suspects of who we would expect. So I'll go down a bit of a different route as to sort of give huge amounts of credit to both Ewan Murray and Liam Dick. That looked like a centre and half partnership that had been together for plenty of time. Ewan Murray was just absolutely imperious at the back. Just absolutely got his head on everything. Brian Graham's never going to be an easy day. But yeah, just absolutely relentless in winning the ball. And if he wasn't, Liam Dick did a really stellar job in terms of clearing everything up as well. So the meathead and the unbeaten captain are continuing on, and huge fans. But yeah, I mean, across the board, Callum Smith did a brilliant job. as you say, Josh Mullen just absolutely relentless as well. And just Gibson, Easton, Byrne. There's so many to choose from. Stevenson as well. Yeah.
Perfect. So that's, first 3 points on the board. And really good platform with a couple of weeks off, albeit with a friendly against Kirkcaldy and Dyser on Tuesday night, but a couple of weeks away from league action for hopefully a new incoming manager to build on that. And I think we'll have a quick word about the incoming manager just in a minute or two after a quick break.
This episode of the Oh No 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 podcast is sponsored by Dynamic Industrial Services, the rope access specialists. The roof of the South Stand at Starch Park is some 19 metres above the pitch, the same height as 11 Aidan Connolly's. But as we all know, there's only one Aidan Connolly, and so you'd be much better off with Dynamic Industrial Services. DIS specialise in working at height, offering a range of services including maintenance, inspection and repair. To find out more, visit dynamicindustrialservices.co.uk.
So shortly before the game kicked off, Andrew Barrowman was interviewed on BBC Scotland by Brian McLaughlin. Scott, I know you managed to catch that interview as it went out. Did we learn anything new from that interview, do you think?
We didn't learn a whole lot. It was about a 5-6 minute sort of interview with him. He kind of just reiterated, to be honest, what he was kind of going on about in the Rafe TV interview in terms of what the BBC kind of were asking him, were just like, what was the reasoning basically behind it? And he was just saying, look, he felt the performances were not what they were in the first half of the season, and he just kind of reiterated that it wasn't a knee-jerk reaction and that they'd been thinking about this for a bit of time, which again, some folk I've got a bit of an issue with the timing of it, but other than that, he kind of was just going on about the same things that Davey was asking him. That I suppose the most sort of intriguing part came near the end, where McLaughlin had asked him, who have you kind of got your list of candidates that you want? And he says, look, we've always had a short list in case of Murray going, because obviously you had the interest of Dundee and potentially Hibs last year. So they've always apparently had this short list, and that they have got 2 or 3 names basically that they want, and they've apparently approached at least one of these guys for to be the manager sort of thing. But the thing that I found interesting was it's somebody that's actually in a job currently. He didn't say whether that's a manager or an assistant manager or just a coach. He didn't say, because McLaughlin tried to get that out of him as well. As like, is it a manager? Is it an assistant? And he kind of just went, no, he's just in a job. So it's clearly going to take a wee bit of time just to try and obviously negotiate his current contract, maybe having to pay compensation, whatever. So I think we're not going to get it very soon, I don't think, a new manager, but I would expect maybe before next weekend we might get a bit more in terms of a new manager.
Listen, I think the term that, I don't know who introduced it, the conversation, whether it was Andrew Barrowman or Brian McLaughlin, but the term they were using was preferred candidate, which sounds very much like they've got one person, but that it's not very far down the line. Preferred candidate seems a little bit like they might have decided on who it is in the boardroom but not told them yet. And he did say that there's a few stages to go through. Again, in a little bit of it that I caught. So yeah, I don't think we're any closer to learning the identity of who that is. I also don't think there's really been any firming up of any rumours at all. It really does feel like at the moment both the Daily Record and the Sun are introducing a new name so that they can write a story about it today and then write another story tomorrow to say why it's not going to happen.
Or if you're Darren O'Day, just do it in the same article.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, oh, this person's been linked to it by us. And then the next day, oh, they're not getting it because, they have a job already and they like it. And you're like, right, okay, so you've got no idea. And I don't think we've learned anything else. I don't think we really there's any benefit in us spending any more time on that this evening.
See, just to say on that point, I feel like, because I don't know if it's just because we got a win yesterday, but I'm like quite relaxed about it. I know that there's like the transfer window closing, but like realistically, we're not going to be paying any fees for players, I would expect. So like you're generally going to be looking at loan moves or free agents, which you'll still be able to do after the window closes. So I don't know about anyone else, but I'm quite relaxed about it. Like there's
I'm not
a couple
entirely
of
sure
weeks
the
until our
manager.
next game.
I'm not really entirely sure the manager's position actually negates us signing players either. That's the thing with the structure that they've got.
100%.
If
And I
John Potter
don't
sees
think
somebody and wants him, we'll get him in.
And I think as well, you add to that the coaching. We've already got John Potter and Mickey in place, so like it's not a huge rush to get it in unless they've got like any tactical ideals that they're specifically wanting. So like I'm pretty easy to say about it. Like just take your time and make sure you get the right person in.
We touched upon it before, but it's not like the market that we're shopping in for players is like really specific, really niche guys. All the players we've brought in so far have been proven championship or above players that effectively any manager would be happy to have, with maybe one or two minor exceptions. So if we're going to do any business of that nature, I think that was fine and it would continue anyway. And if it's guys who are not at that level, I'm not that bothered if we have to wait a week or two to find out. So I have no doubt that we will spend a lot of is it air time if you're on a podcast? Nobody's airing this, we just post it on the internet. But a lot of blethering time will be spent over the next week or two by all of us on that. So we'll leave it for this evening.
See, before we jump into Smost, our beloved Bob contacted us with a few questions, so I'm just going to chuck them out there just to make sure that they're covered off.
No,
just first,
yes, maybe.
Right, so to go back to that, why we seem to have more early season injuries than most teams? I don't think we can really answer that.
No, I don't think we do either. Sorry, Bob.
Was Ian Murray too old school and non-trusting of youth? I don't think that was the case. I think that he signed players like Gibson and Montague on a sort of longer-term deals and shows that. And did off-field progress lead to unreasonable expectations on the field? I don't think that was the case. I think that we're on an upward trajectory as a club, and I think
a wee bit.
Naturally,
I think there's more of a thesis to that than the other two. That you could kind of write on that. I think you could build more of a case around that. I don't know. Sorry, Robbie, remind me just the exact wording that Bob's given us there.
Has off-field progress led to unreasonable expectation on field?
So the bit I would take issue with that is the word unreasonable. If you replaced unreasonable with increased expectations, then I think yes, basically. And whether they're reasonable or not is probably that's the bit that's up for grabs. But I think it also depends on the off-field progression.
Sorry, Duncan, I was going to say I think it depends on who we're talking about. So if it's the board, I think increased, yes. I think if it's the support, unreasonable perhaps at times. But kind of understandable. Do you know what I mean? You make progress, you want to see progress. But yeah, I agree with Duncan. I think there's more of a, I like that phrase, more of a thesis in that one.
How about a real limb? I was not confident in it as I said it. So thank you for the backup. Blair, do you want to give us an update on the predictor? The predictor. How are you pronouncing that? Where are you putting the emphasis on that?
Pre-Dick-tion. Just prediction, really. I just to keep Graham happy. Pre-Dick-tion. I just wanted to get some Liam Dick in our lives. Everybody loves a bit of Dick in their lives. So numbers wise,
this podcast.
Sorry, I can't help it. Numbers wise, firstly, I want to say really thanks to everybody that's got involved. There's always a worry when you do these things that you're going to be met with tumbleweed and 4 folk are going to get involved and 3 of them are going to be us. But 100 players took part in week 2, which was amazing, hitting the 3 figures. That was 80 players had played both weeks, which is really good. 20 new players that had missed week 1 but came in for week 2. And I would say that the scores, I've deliberately done it so that the scores you can't score like 15 or 20 points in a week. So even if you've missed the first couple of weeks, you can still get involved and you'll still be kind of in and around it. Nobody got 4 points this week, mainly I think because the Rovers won. But 40 players with 1 point this week, which was quite a lot out of the 100. 9 getting 0 for the week. But yeah, I managed to get names this week, so I've put up a top, I think it's top 14 or something. I just took everybody that was on 5 and 6. Rory Tate leading the way with 6 points. Duncan's dad is in there amongst a hearty bunch, including Kev Barretto on 5 points. So yeah, really good. And I've put a wee vote up that will close. I've put it up for 48 hours, so it'll close kind of Tuesday, around about the time of the game, on Tuesday night, just to see what people want to do for next week. We either miss a week. There's only one game in the championship, and it's not us. So we either double up the points for their game, or I've suggested the fun show that is Duncan Ferguson, or John McGlynn, and whether he can count when he gets to Hearts.
Good stuff. I know where I've voted for Inverness Montrose just because it feels like I'd like to be
Callum Hannah factor. Still unbeaten.
Exactly.
I never really thought of that. I just wanted to make fun of Duncan Ferguson.
Yeah, that was my main motivation, really.
I don't know if you watched his post-match interview down at Annan.
I did.
Absolutely beautiful, glorious.
My favourite.
I've done everything I can do. I threw a load of players on.
No, he's wondering because I really like that. I've done everything I can do. I put all the players on.
All the players. I put all the players on. Well, that's your job, to be fair.
There are 18 Inverness players on the pitch.
Yeah,
and they still can't score.
Duncan, it's not just a case of putting them on, mate. You've got to coach them. That would be your job as the coach. Madness.
They signed the goalkeeper who was at Bo'ness last season. And I'm almost certain Duncan Ferguson does not know his name because the boy asks him about Musa and about Wallace Duffy, and he keeps just leaning towards answering about Wallace Duffy, just notoriously not known for knowing his own players. Definitely doesn't know who Musa Dabaga is. Right, anyway, let's do our final section for tonight. And Scott, you prepared this a couple of weeks ago, and events really took over, so we've not had a chance to do it. It's the return of Should McStay or Should Dargo. So I will hand over to you, and you can start firing clues at us, please.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether you'll be delighted or not delighted that I've not been as creative as Leslie in terms of 5 miles for the sea or anything like that. So I've gone more back to what it's been before. So clue number 1 is just simply, I am a defender.
John-Yves Mvoto.
Sir Douglas of Hill.
Laurie Ellis.
I was going to say Laurie Ellis. Willie Lyle. I don't know anything about Willie Lyle. I don't know how I'm going to just fact check the rest of these clues.
Sorry, Blair, who did you say again? Dougie Hill.
Dougie Hill, aye. The Starks Park Strangler.
Just check it. And yours was again, Duncan?
Willie Lyle. You're not filling me with confidence there, Scott.
Willie Hill.
Right. Okay. Clue number 2 is I am English.
Oh.
Tom Lang.
Frankie Masonda.
We've already covered
Zambian.
this. Tom Lang is Scottish.
I get the feeling there aren't many Englishmen called Willie Lyle, so I'm not even going to check that.
Julian Broddle.
Simon Mensing. And I know he was born in Germany, but
He's
His
English.
accent's English.
Okay. Manson. Is that everybody's answered yet? I think so.
Callum still got.
Or, well, are you sticking with Tom Lang?
I'm just going to stick with Tom Lang. I'm
Right,
sorry.
Okay, clue number 3. I have played for 4 Scottish clubs, and Wraith were my 4th Scottish club.
Ooh.
That could be Simon Mensing. I'm going to stick with him.
Could be Tom Lang.
Well, it can't be. He's at Falkirk.
Right enough.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And he's just been out injured for the rest of the season, apparently.
Yeah, that's
so...
right. Of course, because that would then make them his 5th.
Todd Lumsden.
Oh.
Okay.
I'll stick with Broddle just now. I don't think he's had enough clubs, but...
I have no
Played for
fucking
St Mirren, I think.
Yeah, St Mirren's the only one I can think of.
Is that everybody happy with their guess?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got no idea, so just skip.
Okay, number 4. I spent 4 years at the Rovers and played 86 games, scoring a total of 0 goals.
It's not Todd
It's not Todd
Lumsden
Lumsden.
because he scored against Morton.
Todd Lumsden, I'm sure, played for other clubs after us anyway. Went to Arbroath, did he not?
Yeah.
Aye.
Simon Mensing can't have been there for 4 years.
Nah,
No, it wasn't.
4
Didn't he
years,
score any goals for Rovers?
20 games a season.
No.
So that's it. Either someone who's in and out the team, or, and this will shock you, a Rovers player who had serious injuries. And was like first pick, but then missed a chunk of 2 out of 4 seasons or something.
Julian Broddle.
That's who I'm on.
Is he a defender?
He was.
Is it? Oh, fuck.
You're Blair from 2 minutes ago. Well, sorry, 86 games, no goals. Right.
It's my pen gone.
Over 4 years.
Jesus,
That's
an
annoying,
English
'cause that
thing,
means
though.
it's someone very obvious and very well known, and we all look like fuds. For a change.
I always look like one in this, so...
Nobody's actually given an answer in this one yet, have they?
No.
Nah,
Nah.
fucking
You
put us out to
flummoxed me.
sea, man.
Four seasons.
I think we might need the next clue.
Yeah, is everybody
For 4
kind of
years.
just sticking with the same?
I think we'll need
Yeah.
the next clue.
I'll stick to
Yeah.
Broddle.
Stick with Simon Mensing.
Right, okay. Clue number 5. I was signed in 2005 by Gordon DL.
Oh.
Ooh. That was what I wanted, an era.
See, this is the worst period for me because I was at uni.
This is the worst period for me because it would have been when I just started going to the
So
Rovers
it's a
and my memory
defender,
is shocking.
Gordon Dale.
So part of the Claude Anelka rescue gang, basically.
The only one I can think of there is Todd Lumsden. That's the thing. I can't think of anyone else, but he did score. So I don't know if it's just the stats are wrong on it.
Oh, questioning the quizmaster. Take a point off. Scott.
Aye, that's out of order.
Might be. No, the first thing.
VAR.
Aye.
So you're talking about signed by DL in 2005. So he's there through
To
the sort of
2009.
brief Levine into McGlynn Mark 1.
We had to play the season we went up.
He's about a stalwart of the squad at the very least if he's there for 4 years. So he played for 4 Scottish clubs and we were the last, so it can't be like a young laddie. not really young anyway.
I'm sticking with Todd Lumsden. I am. He's the only person that I can think of that meets the profile. Because who else did we have during that time? We had Mark Campbell, Scottish.
Willie
Willie
Dyer, Scottish.
Mm-hmm.
Aye.
Callum was after that.
John McGlynn came in and he cleared the decks in terms of a lot of the players, other than Big Marv. Obviously, came in under Levine.
What about the team that went up to Pittodrie, right? The one that was like falling to bits. That would have been in that era, surely.
No, it would have been after, because
No,
that
it
was
was
2009, 2010. So if it's the L
Well,
through
first
the end
year
of it,
after,
it's
aye.
got to be like,
Lumsden's
Any
in a bad shout
guesses,
apart
or-
from the goal.
I'm
Nah,
sticking with Lumsden.
I'm just
because
trying
I
to think of
cannot
players
think
in
of
that
anyone.
era. Like
we
Marco
had, like-
Pelosi was there.
We had Andy Todd, Craig Wilson,
You're at the right era
Blair's
now.
pointing a pen. You got anyone, Blair?
Andy,
I'm picturing that
Andy
squad.
Todd, is he definitely Scottish?
He didn't play for 4 years for us. He
No,
was
he
here
didn't
for
play
about
for
a
4
season
years.
and then he got bid.
Yeah.
I love how
I'm trying
this
to
is
think.
just a collective one guess now.
Aye.
We've just come together as a team, and we're still nowhere close to it.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, this
Um,
is genuinely the worst era for me because this is, you know,
I'm
we all
gonna
have
say
that
it's the
period
worst
where you.
ones that we've done.
It was the worst for the club. I was really lucky, but that period where you kind of come away from it and then you come back to it. I came back to it.
I
in
see.
Pretty much
Right,
07,
it can't-
08. So
I'm the opposite because that was like my first few years of supporting Rovers. So like I remember quite a fair bit about like the seasons in that point
So
and like some of the
Davidson-
players. But
Davidson would have
Right,
been
it can't
there.
be. Davidson would have probably still
but
been
then
in
you're
midfield
going into like
at that point.
midfielders like Chris Silvestro and
But it can't be a right back because Craig Wilson played
Craig Wilson.
like every game
who
for
did
2
we have
seasons.
before that? We had like
You're-
Steve Bonner. He's Scottish.
Yeah, you're not getting 86 games at right back over 4 years in
Yeah,
that era because there's
Yeah.
not enough room
because Craig
around
Wilson
about
came
Craig
in and
Wilson.
basically dominated.
left
He
back,
played like
because he-
100 games straight.
Didn't miss a game.
Laurie
yeah.
came in.
A
Yeah,
left
I'm
back who
flummoxed.
didn't score a goal in 4
Right,
years.
let's hear clue number 6, I think.
Right, well, this is the final clue.
Aye.
I hope to God it gives a little bit more light here. After my playing career, I went on to manage 3 Scottish clubs. And do you want the clubs as well, or will I
Yeah,
give
go
that?
on.
as a
Aye,
clue?
Please.
we'll just
No, yeah.
briefly before we
not
don't.
yet.
I'll give that as
Todd
clue
Lumsden.
7 if you
So
can't
it's-
get that.
So it's
I'm
not
worried
Todd
that it
Lumsden
might
then.
now be Todd Lumsden. Now, Todd Lumsden
did
went.
manage
He
Arbroath.
managed at least Arbroath, and I think also
Albion
Albion
Rovers.
Rovers. I can't think of a third to be fair, but I wouldn't necessarily rule it
But
out.
I'm wondering
he
if
was,
he's done like
Annan
a
or
junior club
somewhere.
like Glenafton or something like that.
Managed 3 Scottish clubs. An Englishman who played for the Rovers and managed 3 clubs.
What were the clubs?
Yeah, you know, give us them one at a time. We'll see if we can see if we can save a tiny little bit of face.
I've not written them down in order that he managed them, but the 3 clubs that he was at was Linlithgow Rose, Albion Rovers, and Arbroath.
It's
must be
Todd Lumsden.
then.
Fair play, Robbie. I was pouring scorn on that, but that's definitely Todd Lumsden.
Yeah, that's Todd Lumsden.
How can you forget about his goal against Greenock Morton, the header, the
Well-
bullet header, Scott? Come on.
The thing
What
is,
is this? What's this, Scott?
No. I thought he had scored, and then I went, I'm not sure actually now that I think about it. And then I went, obviously, and looked on a couple of different sites, and all of them said no goals. I went, maybe he didn't score then. unless it
Scott's
wasn't
just...
no, but I don't know. Does Wikipedia and that all class in?
Scott,
only
I'll
league
be...
games?
Played 50 games for Albion Rovers after he left us. I knew we were near his last Scottish club.
Right. I'm going to give Scott a bit
Scott,
of...
you're fired.
I'm going to give... Hey, Callum, listen to that, right? You don't know what vibes is. It's...
No one does.
Scott, I've got to give you a bit of credit, though, because...
No one does.
But to give Scott a wee bit of credit, see for that Ali Graham one that I did for online, like the Wikipedia goals is completely different to like what.
By the way, you also being wrong doesn't give Scott credit. That means you're both wrong. That's
do you know why I've put that in my notes? Is we were his fourth Scottish club, like his last one, is because he was at Albion Rovers before us. So I'd almost discounted that. But
you're right. Yeah.
Whether that's
right.
like
to be fair,
that
when
was my
he's
reason.
He has played for 4 and we were the 4th. He's not wrong.
Yeah, we were the 4th, we weren't the last. I actually, to be fair, I thought he'd played at Arbroath before he was the manager. Like, I thought he was on the playing staff and basically then got himself promoted, which is complete nonsense. So my logic was faulty anyway.
I definitely remember him scoring. I can't see any record of it though.
He scored against Morton, I know for
it
certain.
might have been like a fucking challenge.
Expunged from the internet.
No, it was a game that they again been weirdly like know quite a lot about that area of Rovers to a disconcerting degree. It was a game that they won the league at Starks Park, and we gifted what was the chairman at the time, Doogie Ray, when he gave him a cake or something like that at the end of the game.
Yes. Yeah, we did. We gave him a cake for getting promoted. 14th of April 2007, the home side picked up 2 second-half goals in just 6 minutes through Todd Lumsden and superstar Dennis McLaughlin. Deflected
off his foot, a stray shot that was going wide, and he ran off and he celebrated like he'd won the Champions League. Dennis McLaughlin. So
yeah, or as the BBC have got it in this report, Dennis McLaughlin, which...
I thankfully have no recollection of Dennis McLaughlin.
Yeah, did be much fun.
Funnily enough, I don't know if you remember, I think it was maybe Duncan that had said it to. Remember, I had said that when my dad had his sports shop, he sponsored a player, and we had a shirt from him. I found out it was Dennis McLaughlin. So
nice. Better off with a
the
non-match
same time when we went to collect the shirt on the sponsors night. We got it from him and got a photo or whatever, and my dad obviously has just given me the top, but it's got a signing for Davo on it, not Dennis McLaughlin. So I was like, well, that's better.
He'd already been released by the time of the sponsors night.
Looking at the other players,
just looking about the lounges, like, Davo, can you sign this? We need someone to do it. All right, okay.
I think we basically mentioned just about every other player in that Rovers team from that day, apart from Chris Fahey, obviously played in goal.
Yeah.
And Sean Colgannon, who came off the bench 2 minutes to go. I think just about everybody else was mentioned at some point.
I remember being away to Alloa, and we were 3-0 up at half time, and then one of the wingers got injured, and Sean Colgannon started warming up for like the first time in about, I don't know, 8 months. We'd not seen him since like pre-season, and everyone's like, oh, nut. It's just played for Middlesbrough at one point. Bizarre. Absolutely bizarre.
Actually, played for Thistle, managed to get himself a reputation of only being able to take set pieces, and then I'm sure Gordon Dale brought him in, and he could only take set pieces. Right, I think that's probably enough for one evening. So thank you everybody for listening. We are ostensibly sort of going into a free week, apart from that friendly, so the podcast schedule is sort of a little bit disrupted from normal, although I suspect we might have cause for an emergency pod at some point before we get together to preview the game away at Ayr on the 24th. So next time you hear from us, hopefully we will be ushering in a new era, or something else has gone horribly wrong. There's only one way to find out. So thank you again for listening, and we will speak to you again soon. Goodbye.